What up, what up, what up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Negroes with a Podcast, NWAP cast. It's your host or your moderator, Smooth Orator.
Tunde, Talk 7.
Lextopia here.
Android.
And yeah, I'm tired as fuck. I'm so sorry. Like I was hooping with my with my old man hooping league.
You still hoop?
Yeah. I was telling the story on the timeline not too long ago. I want to tell it again now. So my barber, he an old head. He was like, they was talking about hooping or whatever, and I've been living in Central Florida for like a year. Couldn't never find nobody to hoop with. I tried to go to the YMCA, but the YMCA is like 20 minutes away. And then when I get there, it'd be like, oh, like niggas don't really be hooping like that or whatever, right? So these in the barbershop talking shit, and he was like, yeah, you know, they was talking about somebody who got choked out at the basketball court like the previous weekend. So I was like, y'all niggas be hooping? He was like, yeah. I was like, well, y'all be hooping at? He was like, oh, you know, we hoop at this recreation center or whatever. We pay like $3 or whatever like that, and we hoop inside for like a couple hours or whatever. So I'm like, all right. He was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying, but it's like invite only. Like the dude who run it or whatever, he'll come early and he'll open the gym up, and then like if you don't know you or
isn't that a public space?
No, it is a public space, but like I think that when they play on Sunday, with the way that they play on Sunday, I think I don't know if it's open.
Oh, like it's a specific league or something.
Yeah, no, it's not a specific league. It's just like a bunch of niggas that's hooping. But like I think the dude has like some sort of relationship with the recreation complex where like we get there early enough where like nobody is at the gym, because by the time we get there, like the only people that's there is like the people that take the money. Like there's nobody else usually at the complex or whatever. So he was like, yeah, just, you know what I'm saying, go ahead. He's like, text me on Saturday night, let me know that you want to go. And then, you know what I'm saying, I'll let my mans know, and then we'll let you in or whatever like that. So they hoop at 8 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. So I get up at like 7:15, brush my teeth, throw on some clothes, and I go out there, right? So the first time I go out there, you know what I mean, I get in that motherfucker, it's like, let me say like 13 or 14 people, you know what I mean? So basically they just run the games where it's like 5 people get on, 5 people get off. You know, if they have like one person who don't want to play, like you shoot for whoever, you know what I'm saying, whoever want to be like that 5th person or whatever. They got a scoreboard, motherfuckers got a clock in there, you know what I'm saying? It's like 10-minute games, you know what I'm saying, to keep the argument.
Is it referee?
Nah, you know, referee call you on fouls, but you know what I'm saying, they got like a, you know what I'm saying, they got a scoreboard and shit, you know what I'm saying, keep this, because you know niggas love lying about how many points they scored. So, you know what I'm saying, niggas be like, man, that's 7. Like, nah, nigga, we ate that other thing. Then you got to stop the whole game to argue and shit. It's like none of that in there, you know what I'm saying? And then like the best thing about the league is like it's a league full of like regular ass. I got to go to work on Monday. I got to take my wife to church. I'm finna go smoke a cigarette and drink some water after the game, ass niggas. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody's trying to get an NBA contract. Ain't nobody in there trying to relive motherfucking hoop days, motherfucking hoop dreams. This ain't Hoosier. You know what I'm saying? This ain't white man can't jump.
Water.
You know what I'm saying? This ain't white man can't jump. This ain't motherfucking above the rim. It ain't none of that shit. Like it's a bunch of fucking picks.
They be on them mouths and yak after the game.
Right.
So everyone plays below the rim.
You see, everybody plays what?
Below the rim.
Yeah. I mean, it ain't no dunking. I mean, I think I might be the tallest nigga there, and I'm 6'2". You know what I'm saying? Like it's like one 6'4" dude who like this. He's like Asian and Mexican or something. He's like the stockiest fucking mother. I don't know if he's Asian, but if he is Asian, he's the stockiest Asian that doesn't play like a professional sport that I've ever seen. Like. And that nigga don't do nothing but come down. He played between the 3-point line. He run from one 3-point line to the other 3-point line. Motherfucker don't play no defense. You know what I'm saying? He James Harden with this shit. Like he dodged out of the way when it comes to defense. But it's like it's real cool because it's like the games are so you can get in. I think the first time I went there, I played like 5 games, and I think I lost like 3 of them. But we played like 5 games in the 2 hours because you know it's 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like the shit just, I'm like, man, like this is the league I've been looking for my entire life. Like a bunch of niggas that own businesses. I think the main dude owned like a pizza shop down the street or some shit. Like a bunch of blue collar ass motherfucking hoopers. That shit is great. This is fucking awesome. I was sore for like the entire week after that first day though, but I just
don't realize yo, basketball is like some of the greatest cardio ever though.
Yeah, that's a good workout.
And you don't realize you're actually getting cardio on because it's so fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I hadn't played a ball in like a year, so like I was doing way too much. Like that first game, I was fucking dying, bitch. I was like my spit was like super dry. Like that's how much shit was popping off or whatever like that. But you know what I'm saying, I found a little league and I'm happy about that. Just wanted to share that little information with y'all. That's what's up.
We're happy for you.
No, he's like that. Anything going on with y'all?
NWAP Fitness.
I mean, you know what I mean? What's going on with y'all? Anything y'all want to share before we get the episode started?
They ran 100 miles.
I just finished running my 9th half marathon, maybe like 2 hours ago.
This year?
No.
Oh,
last year.
I was say, damn.
That's
believable though.
My 4th one this year.
That's half. That's almost half.
Yeah. So
that's a lot.
It was cool. Ran with some people from my run club. I didn't train for it. It was really hilly. Like that shit had like I ran maybe 5 or 6 miles directly uphill. But people looked at me like I was crazy because I was like singing along to my music and dancing and shit while I was running down the hill. But I tried to have fun with it.
Going off.
No, I wasn't. I was just trying to get through it.
That's real.
Yeah, it was cool.
Niggas like, yeah, I didn't train for it, and then 5 or 6 miles was in hills, and I was just like singing songs and doing dances, fucking Omarion and shit. All right. Well, if nobody else got anything that they want to share, we're just gonna jump in right into this motherfucking episode. So today's episode is titled the woke episode because everybody's woke now. I think some niggas is too woke, and some niggas need some sleep, but you know what I mean? There seems to be like this wave of consciousness that is hitting maybe social media. I run into people in real life, and I don't feel like they're having the same conversations in real life that I've been having on social media. But kind of want to have a little conversation about that today, and just sort of, you know what I'm saying, go through it. So we're just gonna kick it off with the first question. So, how do y'all feel about the term "quote unquote" woke and people who consider themselves woke? We will start with Tunde.
I actually don't mind the term woke. What I don't like is people who try to look down on people who like analyze the term. So
like we're doing right now?
Yeah. So you don't like us?
No. Like they look down. They analyze it. They look down on people like us negatively. Like you always take everything so seriously. Like, because the fucking word is serious. Like everything can't be joke time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the term woke is now it has a negative connotation, and no one wants to be associated with it now. But I think it's needed though. So.
Okay, Lex.
I like the term woke. I wish I could remember who really had started it, because I think it started with people saying "stay woke." Around something crazy or big that had happened, and everybody started having conversations about it on social media, probably Twitter to be more specific. But I don't mind the term woke. I would disagree with Tunde in that what I don't like is people who are woke, who make fun of other people who aren't quite there yet. Now, there's some people who are just straight up ignorant and like they want to make jokes about rape or jokes about things that don't need to be joked about, right? But then there are people who they really are trying to ask questions and like, what are you talking about? And people jump on them as if you couldn't dig back a month ago in their tweets where they were saying the same problematic type things. So what I don't like about this whole woke thing is how I feel like it's turned us into like this mob. Sometimes I log into Twitter and I feel like it's a whole mob. Like as soon as people say something, everybody just wants to find something to jump on and like go after the person. So
canceled.
Yeah, like y'all trying to cancel somebody off of, one thing they say, and it's like, nigga, that's 140 characters. Like, let's at least talk it out and like see what's going on here. But for the most part, I do feel like, and I'm really glad that people are thinking a little bit more about certain ideas and concepts. And, to me, that's a good thing that the social norms, in air quotes, is kind of being dissected, and people are saying, you know what, it shouldn't be like this.
Negro and Android.
Yeah, I don't know where woke stems from either. I think it comes from like, I remember back in the day we used to say people had conscious music, and that was implying that everybody else was asleep. And I guess from that, it, later on the line became woke. I think the thing about wokeness is that I don't know when it happened, because like wokeness, like I think in popular culture, you have people that are woke and you have people that are like what we consider mainstream. And I remember there was a time, and I mean, it's a long time ago, when Public Enemy, they were the mainstream, but they were also woke. And I don't know when we got this strict, very definitive, it's either this or that. And when it used to, there was room for it to be both. And I wish we could get back to that. I think that would change a lot of discussions that we have, because then it would be, all right, I'm gonna help bring you along rather than I'm gonna ostracize you immediately.
Are you speaking specifically just about music content?
I maybe, but I just think so much of like music.
You said mainstream, and so I think the issue is that mainstream should be woke, if that makes sense. Like, just because it's mainstream doesn't mean that we should talk about certain ideas and certain things as though that's okay when it's not.
Right. I'm just saying music. I maybe I'm framing it for music because I'm thinking of it in the way that like we used to have like rap and then conscious rap, and like there was like, what would they call it? Like the Soulquarians, where you had Talib Kweli, Mos Def, Bilal, Erykah Badu.
So to you, the opposite of woke is just not having as much substance, not necessarily what that substance is.
So here's the thing. I don't know, right? Because I don't think anybody is. This is gonna sound fucked up, but I don't think anyone is not woke. There are people who are choosing to not engage. There are people who just like, you know how people just be like, my nigga, I don't want to hear all that conscious shit. I just want to dance. And I think that there are people who are just like, I don't want to do that right now. I just want to party. I want to vibe.
I think the people that are ignorant and they don't know that they're ignorant. So
no, you can listen to Trick Daddy. Trick Daddy is one of the most ignorant people in music history, right? But you could go back, you could look at, he got a song, America. He got all these songs.
Are you talking about music or in general?
I think I'm talking about, I'm definitely talking about music.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's talking about like, he's speaking more so about like having substance to your content versus, to me, I'm thinking like the opposite of woke is you not understanding in your mind that women are equal, that Black people should be equal, like things like that. Like, to you, the system as is makes sense to you if you're not woke. So yes, Trick Daddy could have crazy content in his music,
but he still has woke shit.
Maybe. I mean, I don't think that doesn't mean you're not woke just because it's Uchi Wally Wally like right here or whatever. But
is it Uchi Wally Wally or is it one mic?
Right, like that doesn't mean the person is not woke. Just like how we could be on Twitter and we could say, yeah, we're woke, we understand what's real, but I could still sit here and make a joke about get back in the kitchen. You know what I mean? Like it's like a line of what's knowing when it's time for real conversation. Like when somebody comes out and says, you know, I was abused by this person or something happened, like knowing that that's not the time for jokes and that you understand that systems need to be changed versus you say, man, you lying. Like they always lie about this and we can't take you seriously. Like that's not being woke.
Right.
Yeah, I'm kind of, as far as woke, the actual word woke, I think that I kind of feel the same way about woke that I feel about words like unapologetically Black and carefree, whatever the fuck. Like, I think that.
What's the problem with unapologetically Black?
I'm gonna get to that in a second. I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's anything wrong with the words in general. I think the words are fine. I think what people do with the terms is probably what I end up having an issue with. Like, my problem with woke, and by proxy, my problem with things like being unapologetic and carefree is like, I feel like they just put those terms on anything for everything to the point where those words don't have any meaning anymore. And it's like, we'll use unapologetically, for example. Like if you are, I mean, I don't even know if I don't even want to get into it like that, but I'll just say that like when people say that like they're unapologetically Black, it's like I'm Black in a way that is not, even if it is an affront to somebody else, then, you know, I don't care. I'm still going to be Black. And it's like, yeah, I kind of get it. But then like when they're using, it depends on the actions that they're describing when they're talking about being unapologetically Black. I'm kind of like, yeah, that's just what Black people do, or that's what Black people have always done. Like, I don't think we need like a new signifier for like, oh, like being Black in a white space and not caring is like, oh, I'm unapologetically Black, or I kind of feel like when people do these things, they're doing these things that's like performative in a way that doesn't feel authentic, quote unquote. So it's like, I'm going to be as Black as I could possibly, and I don't care if these white people look. And it's like, you're going to be Black regardless. Like, why are you still talking about white people? You know what I'm saying? So like, that's my thing, apologetic. And by proxy with woke, it's like people like started calling themselves woke. And it's like, you know, saying like they're that I'm always cool with people like getting a newfound consciousness, people being more up, you know what I'm saying, opening their eyes a little bit and kind of figuring out what's going on. But I'm also like, dog, like you just got here. I need you to relax. Like you don't need to go so hard. You woke. Help other people be woke. Like, don't be the nigga that's shouting from the mountaintop, like, y'all niggas ain't woke because y'all ain't blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, nigga, you just got here. You discovered what intersectionality meant. You started using words like misogynoir, and then like you don't know what you're doing.
And all the other words.
Right.
I still don't know what half of those mean.
You still started using 6 and 7 syllable words, and you don't have the full context understanding of what these things mean, but you're quote unquote woke. Lex.
It's kind of similar to me, what you're saying to that term Black boy joy. Why is it? So it's like, I understand it. Y'all want to say, oh, you know, Black men smile and dance and have fun too. But why can't Black boy joy just be, I just want to sit here and me mug on my sofa? Like, it's like they're trying to put something in boxes. They're trying to put all these things in boxes where, you know, Black boy joy is because I have this flowy tunic on and I'm smiling and dancing in the rain. And it doesn't have to be that. Like, you know what I'm kind of trying to say? Like, we're still trying to put this shit in boxes.
They were doing that shit with Young Thug, when Young Thug was like, this was like maybe a couple years ago when he dropped that one album when he's wearing like that lilac samurai suit.
That shit was fire.
That shit actually was fire.
That dress was fire.
I never wear that shit, but that
I was
shit
like,
was actually
the dress.
Yeah, I mean the shit was cool though. Like, I mean, the nigga pulled it off. I'm not really sure how, but
stand out about
but like Black boy joy could be I'm sitting on my stoop with my gun in my lap, and like Black boy joy for me, you know, like
right. What'd you say, Tunde?
Going back to the Black boy joy, right? And Slim Thug, and he was wearing that tunic.
Slim Thug.
Or whatever.
I mean, I say definitely not Slim Thug.
No, there's definitely two different rappers.
My bad. So Young Thug, right? Which his new tape is kind of fire with Future, but everyone's like, yo, Black boy joy, blah blah blah, and he's so woke with that, right? But then he turns around and says the most ignorant shit about Black women ever, and then
calling them darkies.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that. Like, I guess he missed he was late for his flight, and the TSA agent would let him board or whatever, and it was like a dark skinned Black woman, and he like basically like called her like all types of demeaning shit in regards to her skin color and her being Black and her being broke and shit. So,
when he was like, "I'll give you $15,000 if you quit your job right now."
Yeah. So like that reminds me of the whole box thing. Like, yeah, you think he's Black boy joy because he wore a fucking dress, but like, is he really like?
It's still misogynist.
Is he really your like definition of Black boy joy? Because I feel like you wouldn't call somebody, give somebody that label who says shit like that.
I'm glad that you actually brought that up, because the next question was going to be, now that people are woke, it seems that there's either rejection of not woke people or setting folks up to be woke and being disappointed when they're not. And I use Cardi B being a quote unquote feminist icon and then being shouted down for being quote unquote problematic. What's the real issue here? Lex.
I think we need to stop putting these labels on other people, especially people who are notable or in the spotlight. Just because I say something that sounds good or you appreciate or it's responsible, I feel like it's other people who are trying to put labels on me, or they're going to be the ones to say, oh, wow, I'm so glad we have Cardi B. She said this. She's really out here working. She didn't say that. Like, she's not the one who said, I want to be an icon for this. I want to change the world or anything like that, right? And so I think we need to keep people off of these pedestals. And then even similarly to what Tunde is saying, everybody wants to be woke until they get mad because they're extra woke, but then they want to tweet somebody and say, you fat bitch, like, sis, you need to do this. And you know what I mean? Like, then all of a sudden it's like, you dark skinned bitch, blah, blah, blah. So again, what does being woke even really mean? You understand these things, but you don't always choose to be in that space.
Yeah, it's always weird how people pretend that they're above certain things, and then when they feel like somebody is coming for them, quote unquote, then like now it's their time to roll in the mud. And then when you're like, wait a minute, I thought that, you know what I'm saying, you say that these things aren't you said that these things
it's problematic until you want to use it to hurt somebody's feelings,
right? And then it's like, well, what's up? Well, you know what I'm saying, they shouldn't have been coming for me like that, you know what I'm saying, blah blah, yada yada yada, bougie. And it's like, well, wait, so are you actually like about this thing, or is it like something.
Or you're fake. This is the fake woke Olympics, like you said.
Yeah, there's even more nuance than that. Like, can you be only woke in some spots and not woke in others? Like, if you're quote unquote woke, like, do you need to be woke all the time? Nigga,
well, I guess
like,
woke just means you know it, right? So then it's are you choosing to apply that at all times?
Right. Negro and Android.
So let me say the question again.
So the original question was, you know what I'm saying, people that are woke, there's a rejection of non-woke people, and then setting people up, you know what I'm saying, calling them woke or making them, you know, like this a symbol for something, and then being disappointed when they're not. And I use Cardi B as an example when people were saying, oh my God, you know, Cardi B is, you know what I'm saying, carefree black girl magic, all this and that. And then she says something that's fucked up and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe she said that. It's like, it's almost like people are putting her on a pedestal, and then when she fucks up, and you know what I'm saying, there are more people attacking her because there's such a push to make her, you know what I'm saying, that person. So like, how do you feel like about that?
I think that we should not declare anyone as woke unless they say that they're woke, right? So or unless they do something that's like, yo, I'm specifically talking to that woke portion of the population. And we were talking about Cardi B, I want to go to music, right? Like
I think you were already at music.
Yeah, you never left music.
Right. Right. If you look at Black on Both Sides, like, I don't think that there are, you know, people talk about perfect albums. I don't know that it's perfect all the way around.
It is.
But it's like a 98, 99, like, out of 100 album. And the thing is, like, Mos Def, I just recently learned this. This dude was, like, evading paying child support. This dude was doing a lot of things that are not necessarily positive to the community that he spoke so much to, and the things that he espoused that we should be held accountable for. Like, then I think he's a fair target, right? You talk to him about that. But as far as Cardi B has always been like, it's not fair to go at Cardi B, because Cardi B was like, if you ask her, she was like, I ain't no comedian. Like, one of her first videos was like, I'm a stripper hoe, and she was like candid, and that's one of the reasons like that she became like Cinderella. We fell in love with her because she's like, honestly, and I think I'm gonna use the phrase y'all don't like, unapologetically, she was like, I am a stripper. In her music, she talks about, I don't have to dance no more. Like, that's probably liberating for her, because who knows what kind of bullshit she went through as a stripper. And she's like, now I don't got to do that. I make money moves. And like, I think that's a good thing, and we can applaud her for that, but we can't make her Michael Eric Dyson.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, she is what she is, and she's done what she's done. Let's keep her in that lane and support her in that lane. But I don't expect Michael Eric Dyson. I don't want him to be a former stripper.
Okay.
So it's like, you know what I'm saying?
That's weird that you said that.
No, I'm just saying, like, let her be what she is.
Not a good visual.
No, not at all. But I have a follow-up question, and then I'm gonna go to Tunde. Just something for us to think about, because what Negro Android said is actually made me think about, like, how accountable do we hold people for certain things, right? Like, to Negro Android's point, well, you know what I'm saying, Cardi B is who she is and where she's from, so there is a chance that maybe she doesn't have whatever the tutelage that people think that they have now, as far as, you know, transforming to being woke or whatever the case is. And it's like, people make her a thing for whatever reason. If she makes a good comment that people like, she's, you know, yes, queen, she, you know, all that good shit that people do on Twitter. And then when she doesn't say anything, it's like, well, well, what did you expect? Like, she's from a person from the hood, like she don't know better or whatever, which is actually kind of insulting, right? That people feel like that should be your go-to defense, that she is a person from a not as high socioeconomic status. Therefore, she is either incapable of understanding these things, or she doesn't know these things, so that we must defend her and infantilize. I don't know. I don't know what that word is. We must treat her like a child, and that she isn't capable of understanding these things or whatever like that. I've always found that was very, very weird. But I also have like a lot of problems with how, for lack of a better term, suburban kids who've never lived in the hood feel about the hood in general, and what they think about people from the hood. But we'll touch on that later. Tunde, how do you feel about, you know, the question? Not the question, the one that I just asked, but the one from earlier.
Cardi B.
Yeah. So,
well, not her particularly. I just asked, you know, I just made her an example.
Yeah.
You can ask about anybody else. Yeah.
So I want to give some other examples. Well, one, I agree with Des. Like, I don't think that we should label somebody woke regardless of their views, unless that's how they want to be viewed as. Like, two more examples besides Cardi B are J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar, right? Oh, these are two dudes who everyone swears like they're the most wokest dudes ever, right? Like, and then Kendrick comes out with a song talking about, you know, how he appreciates natural women, and
that would be humble.
I was thinking about that too, and everybody jumped on him.
Yeah, everyone got on him, like, but you realize he's still a rapper. Like, that's what rap is.
He didn't even say anything really bad though. He was like, "Show me the stretch marks and stuff," and people were still mad.
It was the video. It was the video more so than the actual song lyrics. Because when you hear the song, like it's
I don't know about that, because people got mad before the video even dropped.
I don't remember
when a song dropped.
They were mad because the girl had curly hair and the stretch marks were like light.
I feel like people were more so reacting to like the video and like whatever his definition of natural was. Because when I first heard the song, like, not that I'm the arbiter of what is okay and what's not, but like I feel like those songs that line is so, or those lines, there's like 3 lines. Yeah. They're so minuscule in the greater overall topic of the song. Like I feel like nobody would have really picked up on that without the visual attached to it. But that's my opinion.
Okay, speaking of visual, he also had a cover to I forget which magazine, and he was getting his hair done, and it was a hand.
Rolling Stone.
It was just a hand, and people got on him because of that. And I feel like
because the hand was light skinned, and people were saying that people thought it was a white woman, and then we later found out it was his light skin.
But here's the issue: people want to say woke is being super black, like how we said earlier, and how G said earlier. And that now we want to attack light-skinned blacks, and now we want to separate who's really black and black enough and all of that. And I think that's when it gets out of line completely.
It's problematic as fuck, to be honest.
Who's the arbiter of blackness?
Yeah,
I am.
So
I am the arbiter.
So like, same thing with J. Cole. Like, people swear he's woke as fuck, like, and he makes music like slut shaming like fuck.
Listen, the first J. Cole song I ever heard was Lights Please, and the whole song he's talking about not wanting to think about consciousness just so he could, you know what I'm saying? He's using this girl, so he's using his ability to fuck this girl to get away from all his problems. I mean, I don't know.
Like, I don't want to talk about that shit with you. I just want to get my dick wet. That's all he talks about. This nigga,
I think it's because he has dreads, and niggas think that niggas with dreads are like.
I mean, but then again,
ascend to some higher.
I ain't rap like common sense. So I mean, some of this shit is, like Tunde said, like you got to make shit that sells as well.
Also,
but I really don't believe that they are like super woke, or that they have that. But I mean, with everybody, it's that weird. Sometimes you're into it. Sometimes you're like, fuck that bitch. You know what I mean?
You have to allow people to be well-rounded. Like, I think I'm well-rounded.
I think that's really what we should be striving for. Be fucking well-rounded.
Like, I have my moments where I think about deep things, and I also have these moments where I'm like, yo, fuck that. I just want to get my dick wet. How about that? Like there's a
can we not
like
Tunde?
No, I'm using not literally, but like going back to what J. Cole said, and
the mentality.
Yeah, the mentality. So like you have to allow people to walk on both sides, because no one wants to be all the way woke and no one wants to be all the way ignorant.
That shit is stressful. Having to analyze and think about everything you say and who am I gonna offend and what's gonna happen.
Yeah, but I also think that that's not. I think that if you're always one thing, then you're still fronting. Like because nobody is everything one way. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't believe in calling women bitches. Like that's not like if I'm talking to another woman, I'm not gonna be like, yo, bitch, what up? Like, or you acting like a bitch. Like I'm very, very vehemently against that. But when I'm watching Love and Hip Hop, it's everybody's a bitch. I'm watching Black Kick. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this bitch? Like, doesn't mean that I'm not aware that there's a problem with that, but I'm not so far gone on the wokeness path that I'm just gonna be like, I don't necessarily feel like I like you guys said, I think there's always a balance. Like I listen to J. Cole. Well, J. Cole probably wouldn't even be the best example there. I listen to Common, kind of, and I listen to Jeezy. Like, is that not one of these things, you know what I'm saying? These things are not mutually exclusive. These things don't, all these things can coexist, and I can still be a person of reputable means. I guess, because everybody is doing these things. Like, unless you're living like a vow of celibacy and you ain't dressed like a fucking nun all the time, nobody's doing this shit all the time. And I feel like this whole thing, like, so Twitter just has, we always say social media in general, but it's really usually just Twitter, because Facebook is like light years behind whatever the fuck we're talking about anyway. But like, Twitter just has this weird obsession with like being the arbiter of who can be what thing and being in control of who can be what thing. You're letting people into this imaginary cookout, which is like the stupidest fucking thing.
Oh my gosh.
But have you seen that white people have co-opted that? Like, I'm invited to the cookout shirts.
Yes.
And don't even understand what they're talking about.
Don't even know what they're
like, oh my God.
And for people who might be listening to this podcast and don't have any sort of, I don't even know. I should probably ask, like, if you're not on any form of social media like that and you listen to this podcast, I'd like to know how you found it. But the cookout is basically like this imaginary cookout where you invite white people who quote unquote seem to understand what the black experience, unquote. So the Twitter is just like this thing where people are like, well, this white boy said this one, like, this white boy said this thing and it was in agreement with black people, or he seems to understand the black plight, so we're inviting him to the cookout. And then you invite these people to the cookout, quote unquote, and these people turn out to be racist, and all of a sudden he's not invited to the cookout anymore. It's like the most ridiculous fucking shit. And then this whole thing with canceling people and we're not doing, they canceled, we're not doing this, we're not doing that anymore. And it's like the slope gets real slippery because everybody is problematic in some way. Some people are problematic in ways that you understand, and some people are problematic in ways that you don't understand. And then it's like, if you can understand their problematicness, quote unquote, then you're cool with it. But if you can't understand it, or it's like not something that you vibe with or whatever, then it's like, oh my God, well, fuck them. And it's like, well, nah, nigga, you got some problems too. Negro and Android, and then Alexia.
So I just want to say something about that whole cookout thing. The funny thing about the idea of the cookout is that the cookout would be just like the cookout for real. So you would have the niggas that grew up with the goons and hung around the goons at the cookout. Then you would have all your cousins and them who went to college, and all of them would be on the other side of the cookout. So how we gonna have a divided cookout that we're inviting white people to? That they gonna walk into.
That's a good point, actually.
They're gonna be like, "Whoa, you niggas don't even like each other." I don't know.
That's a good point.
Here. I'm gonna go home, Dimitri. It's like, shut up, Walter.
That's that nigga picked the blackest. I'm gonna go home, Demetrius.
And yeah, because there's a sphere of like a spectrum rather of people, of black people. Like, it's not even just one thing. It's not because you can dance you're invited to cookout. So there's plenty of black people who can't dance. So I mean, that's part of it too, where it's like we're trying to define what stuff means, and you shouldn't. And so the comment that I want to make was, G's last part of that question was, what's the real issue here? To me, the real issue in being woke and in this woke topic is that too often we're focused on other people instead of ourselves. Like, I'm trying to define you, or I'm trying to see, what are you talking about, or what did you say? Everybody should be focused on themselves and like trying to figure out, learn what's right, what's not right. What do you think? How are you talking? Like, understand your own, how you're multifaceted, instead of trying to jump on everybody about every little thing. So I think that's the biggest problem, is like, it's too outwardly focused instead of people looking at their own issues.
Yeah. And I mean, like, people overlook the blatant hypocrisy, as I already illustrated earlier when I just said that I don't call women bitches, but if I'm watching Black Ink Crew, somebody's getting called a bitch, and it's probably a woman, or everybody gets called a bitch on that show, but that would include women as well. It doesn't mean that I'm less, whatever. It means that, I understand these things, but it's like, this is life, man. You got to be able to, you got to be one nigga one place or one nigga another place. So, these are things are a part of me, and to pretend that I'm not that person sometimes, even though that to pretend that I'm not that person, even though I do understand why it's problematic and why I shouldn't do these things, and I still choose to do these things. Like, everybody does that shit. And then pretending that you don't do that just makes it look like you're fronting very, very hard. So the next topic, or the next portion of the question that I wanted to get into was, I think we're actually coming out of this era a little bit, but there was a time on Twitter where it was like the think piece era. Like, niggas was writing articles on everything. Like, anything that they had a problem with, you was getting a fucking think piece. And basically a think piece is like a long essay on how somebody feels about one particular thing for whatever particular reason. And a lot of Black writers who did not have a voice before, I think a lot of them found themselves or found their voice in the think piece era, or found themselves, were able to sort of channel that era into like a career, a freelance career, a writing career, whatever, YouTube career, whatever. There was like a lot of Black creativity that was out there. It was just a lot of shit that was happening. Some of it good, some of it not. People were turning themselves into brands instead of being people, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. Overall, I think the think piece era was actually pretty good. But for you guys, did you feel like it was a waste of time, or do you feel like there was valuable information that was being, put out there for people to learn from? We'll start with Negro and Android.
I think the think piece era was, I think it depends on which writers you follow. I think there were some that were putting out quality content, and I think there were some who were putting out quantity, like putting out a lot of information, but not necessarily stuff that was really good. Like there's like very stuff that was like very surface. It's like, hey, like the moral of your essay is that police killing unarmed Black men is wrong. And it's like, okay, we all agree with that. Like, actually, I mean, that's not true, right?
Y'all don't agree with that.
For the majority, a lot of Black people feel like, hey, that's wrong. You're right. I think the problem with it was there was no cohesion, and there was never, because everyone was trying to find a niche and create something and approach it, any topic, from a nuanced point. You just got to look at one thing a bunch of different ways, and everybody got to point out what the general, like, hey, this thing is on fire. You're right. And fire burns if you're at this distance. Fire burns if you're at this distance. Fire burns if you're wearing a hat. And it's like, everybody has their own nuanced view of it. But the overarching view was that, okay, fire is burning this thing. There was no traction. There was no movement. There was no progression of the conversation forward. If you look, when something was happening, you was like, I think the best thing that came out of the think piece era was, and I don't know if this is a direct result, but what is it called? Mapping police violence. Whoever those people are, a lot of that. No, not Campaign Zero. That's DeRay, right?
Yeah.
Is that the Mapping Police Violence project?
That's the Mapping Police Violence, yes.
That is the best thing that's come out of all of those think pieces, because people were all like, hey, that's messed up. And then all of a sudden, we got something that was tangible, that was like, we could hone in on it and be like, look at this. That was good. The rest of it kind of, if you look at it now, it's kind of gone to the wayside.
Lex?
I see those types of articles as more like journalism, and I know that's really fuzzy now, but when you say think piece, to me, I'm thinking about like somebody's article about why Kendrick Lamar is a misogynist because he had a wavy, long-haired girl in the video. Like those things where it's like you have to tiptoe around every sentence, because no matter what you say, somebody's gonna be upset about something.
Right,
like,
you're gonna hurt somebody's feelings.
Yeah, and it's just like, bro, or like I just saw yesterday, maybe, or a couple of days ago, probably further back from when this episode airs, but a conversation around body type in women, and somebody using Karuchi, I don't know how to say her name. Karuchi.
Her name is Karuchi.
Karuchi's picture at the beach, and like, yes, finally somebody who's, okay with their little body, and now we can feel like we can be out here and people will love us. And of course, all the meaty girls and even regular sized girls, because Karuchi's super small.
You just call them meaty?
Oh my God.
I'm meaty, like as far as regular, like I'm like 130, right? Karuchi's like 100 pounds or something like that. Like she's like half of me, like literally. So for people like super small is what this is about. So
can I call you meaty?
Then everybody wanted to jump in. Everyone wants to jump in and say, "Oh, you guys are always getting the spotlight, blah 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 blah." And it's like on both sides, people have issues. Like just because somebody's light skinned, that doesn't mean they don't have issues and they can't talk about problems that they have. Just because somebody's this doesn't mean they can't talk about problems that they have, whatever. And so it's like we're having this Olympics about who's the most hurt and who's getting the most, who has the most problems, instead of just realizing like we all have certain issues or whatever that we can discuss without trying to say, well, because that never affected me, or because that's not as serious as my issue, it's no space to talk about that.
Tunde?
So at first I was going to be like, I don't have a problem with think pieces, but then like Sophia brought up a good point about when people say think pieces, they think about that other side of articles about like people overanalyzing the simplest thing. because at first when I thought about think pieces, I think about like reading like long form writing, like we see in Abernathy or we see in the Atlantic, and I don't have a problem with those type of articles. I actually enjoy them because most times I actually learn something from them. But if we're going by like Topia's example, I hate think pieces. Like I wish they would.
Joints where they just hop on Medium and just start typing how they feel.
Yeah, I wish they would die. Like, because most times they're not informative, they're not funny, and it's maybe like 2,000 extra words for no reason. It could have been. You could have tweeted that in like 5 tweets.
It mostly just shows like why they're hurt as a person.
Yeah,
honestly.
Exactly. So, like, I don't.
Like what triggered them?
I don't have time for that shit. So, and plus, I think with Twitter, like my attention span, like if it's not a book, like I don't have time to read your fucking 3,000 word essay on Kendrick Lamar and why his light skinned wife or girlfriend are issues. So
I can dig it. I'm like I'm cool with it. One, because, well, not necessarily because
but you know how to digest it. Some people read them shits and take them like 100%. Like, oh my god, yes, I never thought about this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not coming from it from a consumer perspective in terms of like I'm consuming this information so that I'm hoping to learn something. I'm a writer, whether by trade or by title. So I read these things in sort of like a different. I'm looking at different things when I'm looking at these pieces. I'm looking like at grammar and sentence structure and like narrative and like a whole bunch of nerdy shit that most people probably aren't looking at unless you're either a writer or somebody who consumes writing in that manner. The thing that I liked about that particular era, because I said era because I kind of feel like I don't read them as much anymore, or rather people started threading tweets and stuff.
I think people are just scared now a little bit more because like I said, they're gonna get mobbed up. Like now people don't stand for you saying any old thing anymore.
Well, I mean they shouldn't. And not that they should. I don't think they should, but I think that the immediacy of Twitter has kind of made people started threading tweets, which wasn't really a thing during the think piece era. Like people really took to threading.
Now every time you see a thread, it's like, nope.
It's like 45. It's like 45 tweets now. Now some people got 280 characters. So like niggas is really wilding out of control with that. So that's why I say it's like an era, because I kind of feel like once people realize that you can thread tweets and you can sort of get the response that you want, because a lot of that stuff is about like the response that you get and sort of like that's the currency, is the response and the attention that you get from writing these things, and then the comments and having your name in the byline and stuff like that. So I feel like a lot of the stuff was that, but I do think it gave a particular generation of younger Black people the ability to join conversations that they might have not been able to join before, or probably weren't having on their own with anybody in real life, quote unquote. I feel like it gave them an opportunity to sort of get those thoughts out. And of course, we're not gonna like all of that shit. Like sometimes that shit is basically devoid of anything that would even and that shit is devoid of anything that would even remotely close to resemble like information that can actually help somebody. But as a writer and a person who's written online for like, god damn, it's been like 15 fucking years now, or close to it, is that there for a long time there weren't any Black people writing online. There weren't Black people my age writing online. I wasn't in a space where I could read a bunch of thoughts from Black people. Like it started with the blogging era, which is probably like 2006, 2007, where there were like a whole bunch of Black blogs everywhere. People writing personal blogs about really personal stuff, and it's like this whole like awakening.
I missed that era.
You missed it, or you missed it?
I miss it.
Yeah,
I had a blog too. Like the person. That's how I started following you. How I started following Robin, who was on this podcast before. Like
right.
A bunch of my friends on Twitter now used to have personal blogs.
Right. And to like people that you read their words and you were like profoundly moved by the shit that they were doing, and then it kind of got to like
was that a low-key compliment to yourself?
No, it was talking about me. I say in general, like you would be moved by the things that people would share on these blogs, and then you kind of got to an era where people were like, I'm trying to make a name for myself. I'm trying to turn myself into a brand. So let me pump out these articles with content, which is, I hate that fucking word. content creation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not writing. It's just let me create something so that whatever. That's my own issue. I feel like I give people a voice. It's basically, that's like the short form of what I was trying to say. So I appreciate it for that. But I'm not too particular about some of the stuff that I see now. And there's one website, which I will not name, that I'm thinking about in particular, which seems to be like a real bad offender of like not having, it's like the worst example of when you have like a lot of voices, but not a lot of oversight. And no editing and stuff like that. Like you just let anything pass through the door.
It ends up hurting their brand because they're thinking it's a good thing because they can get more writers, more pieces.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's like some of these are a little off.
Yeah, you just end up fucking the whole thing up. And I'm gonna stop talking before I start talking about like the black people who got some of these shots to do something when they just discovered their blackness like 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden they're supposed to be the arbiter of blackness. I'm not gonna do that today. Maybe tomorrow, but not today.
Yeah, because that's not fair either.
Nah, it's not fair to them, but I know why it happens. So, all right, now that we done got my little issue out the way, let's wrap this up with this final question. And I feel like we kind of touched on this before, but this is how we're going to end the podcast. There's actually 2 questions, but we're just going to skip that because we kind of already said that. What's the one thing you feel like you were sleeping on, quote unquote, and now that you're woke about? I have an answer, but I just got done talking for like 20 minutes. So
I know mine, but I gotta think of how to say it. I think for me, it was around opportunity and kind of like the ability for people to do anything or have opportunity, or maybe not so much realizing the real stress and the real issues that some folks have in having choices to do more or to have different jobs, or I don't know if I'm explaining it very well.
Can you give an example of what you're talking about?
For example, and it's tricky too, right? Because it's like I do feel like people can do anything, and I feel like, yeah, you can hop online and learn some stuff. Yeah, you can, but it's harder, right? I think not fully giving credit to all of those obstacles that really are in the way for certain people of color, maybe people of lower socioeconomic status, that really are in the way for them to have certain opportunities. And the fact of racism to the degrees that it's really in the system, like where you really don't have certain opportunities.
Right. And what I was going to ask you is, are you talking about in terms of like having a small business? Because I kind of feel like that's kind of where you were going, but maybe that's just kind of what I heard. Or are you talking about like in general? Not when I say
general.
Okay. I was gonna say when I said about a small business, I mean like when you're talking about like people being able to have opportunities to do something, you not being like fully aware of that. Like, would that be an example that you would use? Like, people not having small businesses because you feel like they should be able to learn, and if they want to do it, they can do it. But like people are not doing it and like not understanding why, or
I don't know. I mean, maybe like just understanding more so that you have this person is a single mom. And then that's due to a lot of other factors, but this person's a single mom. They have 3 jobs. It's hard for them trying to look for a job. Like, sure, you can do anything. You can get online. You can learn something. You can start a blog or try to, do a side hustle, do all these things. But there's so many things that really are holding you back to where you can't just look at everybody and say, you could do it. You have the same opportunity. We've all had the same opportunity, because
it's not true.
Yeah, you really, really don't. And I think that was a factor of how I kind of grew up hearing that. But then at some point, there was this cognitive dissonance that was there where my parents could tell me that. And it's like, I get why you're telling me that. And I understand the concepts of thinking that way and not feeling like I'm limited. At the same time, I can look around and see, roaches in our apartment, or how small our apartment was, or the fact that we couldn't go out to eat all the time. And like, we are limited. Like, we do have obstacles. Even though you're telling me to focus on, yes, you can do this, yes, you can do that. And so there's like this, what's the reality versus, kind of having that positive thinking without sitting here lying to yourself as well, or trying to lie to others and tell them you have no excuse. Because while I hate to even use the word excuse, there are real issues that keep you from doing shit. And I think sometimes we have to go through stuff to really realize like, oh yeah, like this shit ain't easy, you know, as you grow up and you're more of an adult and out of school and all of those things.
Gotcha. New and Android.
Oh man, I think I've learned a lot. I think
just pick one thing, bro. Just pick one.
One thing that I will say I think I've really gotten into is looking at like ableism in the Black kink community. And I think that's something that is like we look at, you know, especially like being in New York, like some places have elevators, some places don't. They just have stairs. But if you're confined to a wheelchair, you know, for most of your mobility, not all those places lend themselves to your presence. And I think like I was, you know, out at an event the other night and I was doing some tie-in and I was tying up somebody, I was getting ready, and then we talked and they were like, yeah, I'd like to, you know, be tied up. And I was like, all right, cool. And they're like, all right, cool. And we talked a little bit more about it. And they're like, okay, I need to take off my leg. And I was like, all right. And that was something I hadn't encountered. I was like, and I was just like, you know, it's something that I was like, oh, well, let me sit down and ask this added, you know, just because there were things that's like, yeah, this is very simple. There are things that you can do to tie off certain things. But it was just like, that's something that I wasn't aware of. And I think I've become much more aware and sensitive to it.
Like disability?
Mm-hmm. Like physical disabilities, right? You have people who, like, I know for me, right? Like, I don't consider myself physically disabled, but I've been shot in the arm. So I can't, like, if I have something that's compressing on my right bicep, I can't do that for too long because my shit will just start to go numb and I can't feel anything. And then it starts to sting. Like, that's something that I, you know, it's a consideration that I have, and we think of considerations for people when we're playing with them. But I think that also just having further engagement around people who have mobility issues, people who have, you know, other physical things that and kind of keep them from attending events and being present at events and being sensitive to that. I think as more of a kink community, as I see people in that community have tried to make a lot of progressive steps as of recent, I think that's something that I've become more aware of.
Tunde?
So this might make me look like a little bit of an asshole, but this was my way of thinking.
Born woke.
Nah, I definitely wasn't born woke. So this might have been when I first got on Twitter, 2008, 2009. So I don't even know. I'm not even sure you can pull up these tweets. But anyway, I forget what famous white woman said this, but she was basically saying that this. Matter of fact, I think it was around the time that that we had marriage equality, Supreme Court upheld it, and then she basically said that the fight for gay rights was the same as the fight for civil rights in the 60s. And I got mad and like kind of like railed against that, saying, you know, that's not true, like whatever, right? Because, you know, that's just the way I thought back then. And I don't think that way now, but are they the exact same thing? No. But are they very, very similar? I think so.
Man, that's mild. Y'all are mild, because if we were to keep it 100, now that you say that, there's a time when I would have said being gay was a choice. There's a time when I would have said,
I mean, you could have picked anything. We didn't force you to pick something.
No, I mean, I'm just not thinking about it. Like him saying
Right.
that makes me think, like, and most of that is because of the Christianity air code. You know how I was raised to look at certain things. And so I think a lot of that stuff, like the whole trans issues, all of that, because I think we're raised to think certain things are just straight up wrong. Like there's no kind of in the middle. It's some stuff is right and stuff is wrong. And so a lot of that stuff for me too.
Let me say this. Like I know we talk, when people talk shit about think pieces and stringing together tweets, but like I learned and I've been enlightened a lot by social media and Twitter. Because if I were to just rely on the people that are around me and like family and close friends, like they're still pretty ignorant on a lot of issues. So it's easy because we're on there all the time to talk shit about it, but I did learn a lot from it.
I love it for the perspectives from other people, from real people.
Yeah, like I don't, like before I started working at the job I work at now, I didn't personally know any trans people.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until I got on Twitter where I'm like, oh, okay, this person's trans, and this is like their reality.
Mm-hmm.
So if it wasn't for Twitter, before I got to this job, I would have been ignorant to a lot of shit. So
yeah, I was gonna go with one thing that I always credit women on Twitter for teaching me, Black women in particular for teaching me, is like how serious domestic violence is with Black women at the hands of, unfortunately, Black men. And what's weird is like I didn't know, like I don't know how I got. I mean, I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse or whatever. I don't even know what to categorize it as. But like, I've never really known anybody in a domestic violence sort of situation. And when I say I didn't know anybody, I mean these things weren't conscious in my life. Not to say that maybe I knew somebody who was going through something and just wasn't saying anything, but just that I had never known. Like I had one homegirl who had gotten into a fight with the dude that she was with at the time or whatever, but like that seemed like an anomaly. Wasn't a thing that I thought happened all the time or happened as frequently as it does. And when I started hanging out on Twitter and people were talking, like having these stories of just like being abused, and not like, oh, my boyfriend talked crazy to me, but like, yo, this nigga like punched me until I couldn't see anymore. That kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I need to run away from my boyfriend because I think this nigga's gonna kill me. I need to stay in a homeless shelter. I got to bring the kids with me because he's abusing us and I think he's gonna kill us. Like those sort of stories. I watched enough, which was the Jennifer Lopez movie with the white dude, right? Where like she's like being domestically abused and then she like fights it back. And I'm like, yeah, like why women don't just fight back, or why don't she just leave, or why doesn't she do any of the things that a million people have asked and answered already? Because I just didn't have any awareness of it. And now that I am aware, it's like, wow. You know what I'm saying? Like it's these are lessons as far as like, you talk about toxic masculinity, hyper masculinity,
men are trash.
You know what I'm saying? How men are conditioned to, sounds fucked up, but how men are basically conditioned to hurt women. It's just, these are things that I'm glad that I'm cognizant of, because these are things that I can teach my kids about, because without this sort of exposure, these are things that I would not know about. And we'll end with Lex on a final comment.
I think sometimes the issue too is that people may have the right intents with these think pieces and things that they write about the messages they're trying to get across, and it's just that the approach sometimes is not it, and that sometimes with outlets like social media, you're trying to come up with this headline or something that just catches attention, and just off the headline people argue about stuff or whatever. You were just talking about an outlet, and that same specific outlet, as soon as I just now opened Twitter, the first article here says why I believe 99% of Black men are sexist and misogynistic. And the first sentence is, I said what I said, which is a female quote. And like people are going off of just that one thing and like going off about things instead of actually reading it, which if you read it, maybe it is problematic. I don't even know. But I think it's like a lot of these like huge statements and people's opinions, and people don't like being labeled, I don't think, especially when it comes to men and this whole men are trash. Like, we've talked about it before, where even like Tunde said, like, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. And it's weird because it's like, all right, how much do we have to talk about certain issues before it's like we're pushing that issue at the same time instead of actually doing something to make things better out of these conversations?
Oof. I thought this was supposed to be the light episode.
I can't wait to somebody calls Lex trash or pick me for saying that.
Well, but I mean, it's balanced, right? Like, because men are trash. There isn't a single day that doesn't go by, because I don't drive here. Like, there's not a single day that doesn't go by that I don't walk to the gym or walk somewhere and I'll have cars follow me, try to come talk to me, pull me over. There's not a single guy I don't walk by where I can't have to think about like what's going on, be extra aware and alert. I've gone through my own real issues since I was
where though.
right. Since I was like 4 years old, I've had issues with people trying to grope me or grab me and all this. Like, so it's like you get it. And men as a whole are trash, and we understand that concept. But there has to be different approaches that don't attack people. And so if I feel attacked, like I'm not trying to hear you, you know what I mean? So I think that's a lot of times the issue is that you're attacking and attacking and attacking, and that doesn't make them necessarily, the ones who are problematic and have that issue, want to listen to you or be more on that side and understand what you're really trying to say, until it's something that happens with somebody they know or whatever, which is an issue in itself. But yeah, I could say men are trash, but I can also say ain't no man that I choose to be with is trash, because I'm not going to be with that type of person or whatever. So, and I wouldn't call my man trash. I wouldn't call my dad trash, who's the one who has to tell me, be sure you don't do this and be sure you don't walk down alleys, because he also knows that men are trash. It's like, you do know what we're talking about, but this approach makes it kind of weird. So I think approach makes it where we just end up arguing, but we're not actually having the real discussion sometimes. And we don't even have to talk about men being trash. Like, that was just an example, but you can't attack people if you're trying to have real convos about issues, I think.
All right. Well, with that said, this is the woke episode. And
stay woke.
Negroes for the podcast. Niggas stay woke. Don't sleep. Peace.
Ever.
Peace.
Peace.